Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Tuesday Night Live podcast from the range with your host, John G. Johnson. Hello, guys. John, the firearms instructor. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We are live from the range tonight, podcast from the range. We have some people shooting, so you may hear some noise in the background. That is gunshots. We are going to have to take a break when this guy gets done for me to ring him up. But we are here this evening. We appreciate you being here. Got a great show for you. Hope you guys had a wonderful Mother's Day. If you did not realize Sunday was Mother's Day, you're probably why she's not talking to you. Probably why she's not talking to you. And if you didn't get her something for Mother's Day, that's most likely another reason why she's not talking to you. Doing something a little different today. We got a green screen up, and we're showing the backside of the office with a couple of deer and hogs and stuff I have in the back. You guys once in a while see the safes themselves, but I kind of moved the cameras around a little bit. I did it yesterday, and I just kept it here. Just being lazy, that's all, guys. Drinking a soda before this is bad. Gonna make me burp. I apologize. So how was your week? What's going on? Everything good? If you are new to the live podcast, we have a couple things we do each time, and one of those is tell us where you're from. If you're new, tell us where you're from. If you're old, just say hello. We appreciate that very much. It helps us out tremendously. Helps us out with the algorithm. We're getting a really good push on these lives. After the fact, we have somewhere between 12 to 60 people watch these things every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. And then from there, it climbs to about 500 to 600 people that watch it throughout the week and a half. So we're kind of excited where this is going. Starting to make a little bit of money on the live part of it. It's taken us about 2 years to get this thing where we want it. And obviously we're doing it for you guys to motivate, educate, and entertain. And I hope we do that each week. I got a good topic this week because we are going to work on the science of the trigger press. We can't do enough enough videos on trigger because I believe the trigger itself is one of the biggest downfalls for most students. It's the biggest challenge. Each time we do one of these, we want to make sure that sooner or later there's an aha moment for you where I say something that just makes sense to you and it changes the game. That's kind of what happens every time we do a class with a student. There is that moment in the class where I say it 4 or 5 different times and I say it 4 or 5 different ways. And one of those ways is going to click with the student's brain. So we're going to do a little bit of advertisement here this evening. So I wanted to make sure you guys know about our ebooks. You guys actually know about our ebooks because you buy them all the time, and we appreciate that very much. But somebody might be new on hand. We actually have ebooks. And because we wrote these ebooks to help you with grip and stance and trigger control and sight picture and sight alignment, we just want to motivate you to become a better shooter. So how do we motivate you to become a better shooter? By giving you a free ebook away. So all I want you to do is go to the descriptions below and pick one of the ebooks you think you're having a problem with. There's why they shoot low and left, and there's how do I engage a trigger? Where do I secrets of aiming a gun, proper grip, proper stance, and pick the one you think is going to help you the most. And I want to give it to you for free. All you have to do is put that in a cart and enter free book at checkout, and it's yours for free. Now, guys, we have put those books on a deep discount sale for a while now, and they're still on that at 50% off. They're normally $3.99, and you get it for $2.99, which is a whole $1 off. So I'd highly recommend you take advantage of and add a few more to the cart. And once you add a few more to the cart, those will be downloaded just like your free one would be. and then you put a credit card in, obviously, and you're supporting a family-owned business, which we truly, truly appreciate it, and you're helping us motivate, educate, and entertain other students as well. So that is our commercial. We do have the masterclass starting again in June. I mean, yeah, June, May, June. Yeah, June. That's available in the descriptions below. If you don't know much about the masterclass, that is 4 weeks working exclusively with me, going through your fundamentals, going through grip and stance and trigger control. Not only are you getting the masterclass itself, but you're getting videos to work with the masterclass. You're getting an ebook. It's a full course system. It's designed to take a student that's not very good with a trigger, and by the end of the 4 weeks, they're just mastering it. And it's an awesome thing. But not only that, you get the live PowerPoint presentations done with you every Monday night at 7 p.m. You get a homework you have to complete. You get PowerPoint presentations, the rules, and everything else you need. And then you just got to do your homework. Get to the range once a week. You only have 50 rounds you can shoot. That's about what we do most of our low round count drills with. And it's going to guarantee to make you a better shooter. We started this very beginning of February with a beta group. And that beta group was coast to coast. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country or in the world, you can work with me through our course system. And that course system is on sale for $99. And you're going to get everything you need with us and become a better shooter in 4 weeks. Wouldn't it be great to master your handgun in 4 weeks and to be able to outshoot your stupid brother-in-law who outshoots you all the time? All right. So that is that ad. Those are the commercials we do. We don't commercial for anybody else but ourselves. You want to help us, we would appreciate it very much. Tonight is a good overall scientific explanation, as close as I can get to being a dumb country boy, on trigger control. And I've done a lot of stuff for you guys in a lot of these books. And realistically, in the masterclass, it's a week of foundation, a week of training with trigger, and there are rules and regulations that we cover on those to make you a better shooter. But we got to understand what the trigger does. And obviously, that's a silly question, John. What do you mean, what's the trigger do? It makes it go bang. Yes, it does. But the goal of the trigger really is to move the trigger straight back to the rear of the firearm without disturbing your sights or sight picture, which if those two things happen, it's going to directly affect your point of impact. So as simple as we can give it, we need to take that trigger back into a slow cadence that allows us to not disturb sight alignment or sight picture. If we keep those the same, we should be pretty close to what we're aiming at. So what we want to think about mostly as we start getting this in is we need to understand what causes the manipulation of the firearm and try to solve it. That's one of the greatest things about any kind of training class you do. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to fail once in a while to get better. So when you are manipulating the firearm, maybe it's because of grip, maybe it's because of stance, but majority of the time, it's because we're doing some kind of slapping or pulling of the trigger. So if we take these 10 little steps I'm going to give you tonight and just develop them just a little bit better than what you've got now, you're going to become a better shooter. And it all commonly works if you pay attention to what kind of travel you're having. You've all been to the range, you've all shot, you've all had that weird impact, right? Where you got 2 to the right, 2 to the left, 2 up, 2 down. We just spent 40 minutes sighting in a pistol with stupid Glock that the trigger is so stiff, it's so hard to use that. The Glock's a great pistol if you don't mind putting different sights on it and putting a whole nother trigger in it. Obviously, there's Glock boys, and they're going to tell me I'm crazy, but the Glock's got one of the stiffest and hardest triggers for a common person to take it back and slowly press it. So tell me, majority of the time people buy Glock, they change out two things. They change out the sights on it immediately because the box and dot system is a little bit more challenging for people to use. It causes a lot more high and low shots because the box is so wide compared to the 3-dot system. And two, the trigger is a little stiff. It's a loading trigger, I guess is how we would call it, because it's only 5.5 pounds. But as it comes back, there's no hard wall on it. It just comes back and gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and stiffer until the weapon cuts. And effectively, someone with soft skin like myself, it hurts your fingers after a while. Back in the old days, I was a Smith guy, always been a Smith guy, and students would come to the range and they'd bring the Glock 43, which was very popular one time. It was the smallest carry gun you could have. Didn't have the capacity like the 365. This is way before the 365 with the 12 rounds. But my biggest thing was people would come to class and they'd bring this 360, they bring this Glock 43 or the 43X at the end, and they were all complaining about how the trigger hurt their finger. And my fun way of saying it was, suck it up, Buttercup. You brought the gun to the range. You brought the product here. You just got to shoot enough to build a callus that it doesn't hurt your fingers. Well, my dumb ass bought a Glock. Well, I didn't buy it. Some guy traded it in. And I was at a gun show one time, and right behind the Glock guy, it was Johnny Glock or one of those Glock guys like that. And I had my 43X, and I looked on his table, and he had all this cool aftermarket stuff for my Glock. So I said, if I gave you $250 today, would you take this Glock and make it, cool? So we changed the slide, and we put different barrel on it, and we put all this stuff. But we never changed the trigger, which was the thing I should have had him do. And, I carried that gun for a little bit, and I take it out to the range, and after a while, it hurt my finger. It caused me so much pain that I hated that gun, and I sold it to my Jacob's best friend because he wanted one so bad. And immediately what he did after shooting it for about a week and a half, Noah changed the trigger out. Became a beautiful pistol, but I still went back to my Smith & Wesson Shield Plus because now the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus was able to take the Equalizer magazine and put 15 rounds in the gun. So it was an awesome piece. I don't carry anything but a little 9mm in my pocket now, but so I figure if I'm getting a gunfight, it's going to be short distances. But one of my favorite carry pieces is the Smith & Wesson Equalizer and Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. Those are the two that are my top ones. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and break this down into the most scientific thing I can do for you, being from North Fort Myers. I'm a Red Knight. That was our mascot in school. And they said the old statement was, can't read, can't write, you must be a Red Knight. That was the big logo they used to use all the time, made fun of us because the school was a bunch of cowboys. Well, we weren't cowboys, but had to wear our boots and everything else to school and all that stuff. And so they always thought we were rednecks, but kind of fun. All right. Trigger control is a muscular skill. There are muscles involved when you're shooting a pistol. It's mostly flexors that's in your wrist and your arms and stuff like that. And you got to be able to understand how to use them. But I think more important is we got to understand how much pressure we need to put on the weapon and how much pressure we need to put on the grip to control it the best. And this is one of those things that each student has a little bit more power or strength. I always tell the ladies, we do a lot of women here at the range, and they're all trying to muscle the gun with their hands. Well, we don't have any muscles really in our hands. So it's hard for them to grab a hold of the gun and just hold it. They're told, just hold on to the pistol. Well, unfortunately, it's very challenging to just hold on to the pistol if you don't know how to grip the gun to begin with. Well, there's a lot of things going on, but more importantly, gentlemen and ladies, is we need to drive that weapon. With a man, we drive it with our chest muscles, our pecs, and squeeze the gun together as you drive it out, and your whole hand closes, and it makes it a lot easier for you. But for a lady, it's more about a push and pull. You take your dominant hand and push it out, and you bring your non dominant hand and pull back. That push and pull method starts putting a lot of pressure forward and backwards on the firearm, which allows the weapon to stay level. And more level the weapon is, the more bullet will impact level, if that makes sense. So muscular in our chest, gentlemen, muscular in our back, ladies. One of the most important things for both women and men is to get our stance proper. We start talking about, well, John, we're talking about trigger. How is this all? Well, keep in mind that the stance or the foundation of anything is the most important. Whether you're building a sandcastle or you're stacking the roll of toilet papers, you can't stack the roll of toilet papers on one piece of roll. You've got to have a decent foundation. The house, we have the house being built behind us and the house being built in front of us. Today, they were there putting up the walls. They were there doing the concrete walls. They were putting those concrete walls on bare grass. They spent almost 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, pouring a slab and stacking everything to get perfect, to get the foundation. And they leveled that foundation not from the dirt, but from the road. So they had to get surveyors out there. There's a lot of stuff that goes on here. This is the way we need to think about shooting. It's not one thing. It's all of it working in a direction that's going to help you become a better shooter. But the trigger is one of those things. I would say trigger, grip, and stance are the three things that new students, old students, people who've shot forever and a day, or people have never shot a pistol before, those three things cause most of the issues that happen with a firearm. All right. What we're trying to do mostly with the trigger is build a brain-body connection. A smooth trigger press relies on fine motor skills from your brain to the trigger. And this is a great way to intersect into dry firing. We just started second week of the masterclass with the group. And the masterclass, we've given them multiple drills of dry firing. And if you don't know what dry firing is, it is just what it sounds. We're actually engaging the trigger without the gun going bang. And this is a thing that costs you nothing in ammo. It costs you a little bit of time, but it allows you to bring that trigger back into a cadence that you can get it back slow enough that you're bringing it back in the gun and you're not getting any bobble on the weapon. So last time you're at the range and you cut the shot, did the gun move? If the gun bobbled or moved or flexed or did anything else like that, that's going to impact your accuracy of the firearm. We need to control the weapon enough that the weapon stays level. Because the sights on a pistol, sight of picture and sight alignment, are a convenience. When you do a defensive class, we're not using our sights very often in a defensive class. We're using the back of the firearm. We're doing a more point shooting than we are worried about our sights. Now, in the class, we start out with the first couple drills using our sights to help you understand, okay, I get the thing, I see its level, blah, blah, blah. But then after that point, it's bigger targets, it's smaller round counts, and it's running the gun as fast as we can. Our job defensively is to run the gun as accurate as we can. Run the gun as accurate as we can. That's why when you get to these points when we're running 15 rounds, the biggest mistake a student makes is putting too many rounds in a magazine and trying to get a perfect trigger pull the whole time. Because the perfect trigger pull is only going to be the first few, and then you're going to be along for the ride after that point. That's the challenge of 15, 20, 25 round magazines. When you cut the trigger, you're just going to be bang, 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 and you're not going to be able to keep the gun level. We get fatigued, guys. You don't really think about shooting as being fatiguing, but it is. It causes a lot of stress. It causes some neurals going on, right? Internally, each and every one of us has the monster inside of us that doesn't want to shoot, doesn't like the recoil, doesn't like the bang. I'll prove it to you. Next time you're at the range, have one of your friends load your magazine and use a dummy round somewhere in the middle of those 5 shots and go out there and shoot. When that gun goes click, watch what the pistol does. The pistol most likely will dip. And if it dips, that's the anticipation that we're trying to solve each week. And that anticipation causes a lot of manipulation. It causes the low and left. It causes the low. It causes your body to not understand what's going on. That's why dry firing is so important for us, because every time we touch the gun without dry firing, every time the gun goes bang, internal monster screaming its head off. It wants to get the hell out of the room. It doesn't want to be there. But the more we touch the pistol and it doesn't go bang, then it's confusing the monster. So every time you touch the gun prior to dry firing, it's going to go kick, kick, bang. But when you dry fire, you don't get any bang. Now, dry firing is simple. Magazine out of the gun. Range bag in another room. Weapon, racket, open it, verify, check, check, check. Double, triple check. Because you'll be pulling triggers inside your home. You want to definitely make sure the gun is unloaded. Then you're going to take either a white wall, which is with the white wall drill is pretty simple. Put the white wall in front of you. Put the weapon out in front of you. Almost let the weapon touch the wall. As a matter of fact, touch the wall with a weapon and step back half a step. Now, when you got it in front of you, go ahead and put it in your line of sight and slowly press the trigger. That black pistol against that white wall, you will see if the weapon moves. The weapon moves, it bobbles, that means the bullet would impact weird. And most people, Kentucky windage, they do. So in other words, if I'm shooting low and left, low and left, low and left, low and left, instead of solving low and left, what do you guys do? You shoot high and right to get the bullet right in the middle of the target. Well, that's cheating, right? But the idea that the one time that you shoot high and right like that, but get yourself a perfect trigger pull, what happens to that bullet? It's going off into space somewhere. It's not, you don't know where that bullet's going to land. So we need to solve what's causing the problem. And most of the time, it's about trigger press that's causing the problem. All right, so that brain and body connection is so important for us because it allows us to give a smooth press relying on fine motor skills from your brain to your trigger. Under stress or adrenaline, gross motor skills take over, making it easy to slap a trigger or to jerk or any kind of manipulation. Training helps you override this. Dry firing helps you override this. You don't want to believe me, but in a high-stress situation, your body is going to shut off it deems unnecessary. And I could truly prove this to you. think about, I hope it's never happened to you, but think about getting in an accident. I 35 years ago, knock on wood, I got in an accident. Guy pulled out in front of me. It's been that long, seriously. Nah, it hasn't been. Yeah, I had a white truck, but still, the whole point of it is I can tell you everything slowed down during the midst of it. Guy pulled out in front of my white truck. My white truck went up over the fender of the car. I was on two wheels for about 12 feet. It landed back down, and I rolled right out there in front of Nicholas. Totaled my truck, totaled the front end. He was from Pennsylvania, but I can tell you, I seen his eyes, I seen everything. It just slowed down to a point. And that just shows you when you start doing it, your body deems everything it deemed unnecessary. What it told me right then is hold on to the steering wheel, get on the brakes, and try to get out of the way of this guy, right? Well, it was too late at that point in time. Boom, it's done. Now, I took that and slowed that down to a point my body did that for me. But afterwards, everything went back to normal. I can't tell you anything that happened after that accident. I don't know when the cops showed up. I don't know. I didn't call the cops. Who called the cops? I have no idea. Right? I called my wife, and my two boys showed up. And we lived right around the corner from the place. She said I called them. I don't remember calling them. And I wasn't hurt. I wasn't in pain. It just scared the hell out of me. But my body deemed everything it thought unnecessary, and it kicked it the hell out. It said, okay, I got to take this guy out real quick, and I'll be right back.
I don't know.
That's common. You pull to.
Oh.
Yeah, just pull it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see how they're now consistently here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's more important, right? Because now you're getting into consistent aim. What these are, you pull them with your right hand.
Yes.
Don't over torque your right hand.
Okay.
And these here are just getting your finger in the gun.
So I have a question actually.
Yeah.
Why you put the square in here instead of in the center?
Because that's where you need to aim. Remember I showed you, if you take the barrel of your gun and put it right here,
Yes.
Barrel of your gun's going to put your sights above this. That's the 6 o'clock hold effect, right? Here, look.
So
what I'm saying to you is this is where you need to aim every time with every target. Because if you take the barrel and put it directly here,
yes,
your sights are over.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So here, your sights are right in the middle now.
But we need the barrel in the center, right? Not the side.
No.
No?
You don't need the barrel, the sights. This bullet doesn't fly straight. It flies up.
Oh, that's why.
Roll him out. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
I got my live up.
Thank you very much. So you're going to keep this.
I'm going to keep that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much.
You got a picture of it?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We had a couple of people doing the master class that came to shoot their targets today, and I had to give them a little briefing there. All right. So here's the mechanics of the trigger press. It's finger placement first. So you guys can make comments if you like. I am going to check the comments as we go, but I will give you majority people when I say you use the tip of your finger to engage the trigger. I don't mean the very tip of it, but I don't mean the crease. We don't want to use the crease of our finger. We want to be from the crease of our finger to the tip of our finger, and somewhere in between there is where the trigger needs to be on the weapon. Ideally, it's the center of the pad of the first crease. It depends on various of your finger and everything else in the world. I have small fingers, so technically when I go to put it on, I really don't have a problem putting too much finger in the gun. But you get some guy who's 6'8" and's got big hands. It changes a lot for them. But we want to be very careful that we don't use too much finger in the gun. Because what happens if we put too much finger in the gun, that causes the gun to go off to the right or the left. We want to really think about using the tip of the finger to move the trigger back to the center of the weapon, to the back to you. You're bringing the trigger back to you. You're not bringing the trigger down. You're not bringing the trigger up, right? You're bringing it straight back. And it's very hard to isolate one trigger finger out of your hand, because if you take your trigger finger and start moving it, I don't know if you can see this, but my whole hand is moving, my fingers are moving, things are happening. So trying to isolate the trigger finger while controlling everything is key. And one of the things, this pad of your hand, that can't touch the firearm either, because if that touches the firearm, that pushes the gun off to the left as well. So we almost want to have a gap between the skin here of your finger and the gun, which will allow you to press it straight back. One of the coolest things you do, guys, is get a fountain point pen that has a clicker on it, right? Clicks, click, click, and try to just click that pen back. Click that pen back. You'll start getting the feeling of it coming back, and that's going to help us tremendously. Main purpose is direct rearward pressure to minimize side forces. The idea of this is to minimize any kind of side pressure. When you hold on to a pistol, we don't want to have any kind of thumb pressure. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term thumbing, but that's when you have your thumbs crossing one another and pushing against the firearm. Any kind of side pressure or even pushing back on the firearm, that's called heeling or thumbing. There's a lot of things we do when we manipulate. So we got to think about getting a good positive grip. And a good positive grip is a 60-40 grip, 40% from your your dominant hand, and 60% of your grip comes from your non-dominant hand. And you have to give me that 2 thumbs forward that looks like a birdie, close these 3 fingers, close these 4 fingers, and get a solid, decent grip. And that's going to help us tremendously without putting too much pressure, side pressures, or forward or back pressures on the gun. A lot of people will not use their finger here and come up onto the frame of the trigger well, and that's a bad thing to do. If you think about your hands, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one of these is going to give you more power? It's going to be this one here. And you want to make sure that that's underneath your trigger well, not through the trigger well, because when you reach up and lock into that trigger, like Glocks, for instance, have a flat pad there. I don't know why the flat pad's there. It's confusing for people. They think that's where their finger needs to go. But what ends up happening is when you have that finger grab here, you're putting pressure on the backside of that, and it's causing it to roll on you. You don't want to do that. So number 2 is the mechanics of a perfect trigger press. We talked about placement. We talked about isolating the trigger finger. Your trigger finger, you should be moving independently from the rest of your hand, which is hard to do. Clenching your whole hand and with a sympathetic grip causes milking or heeling, which is pulling the shots off target. We want to have a positive grip without having over stimulation of the grip. We catch a lot of students once in a while we call milking, where they adjust their grips. A lot of women do this. They shoot and they grip and they shoot and they grip and they shoot and they grip. And all that milking just causes inaccuracy. For 5 shots, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to over torque your hands each time. You should be able to control the grip continuously with a 1 positive grip each time, especially if you're shooting a 9mm. There's not enough recoil on a 9mm. It's going to cause you issues, especially if you are driving with your chest muscles, gentlemen. and ladies, driving with your back muscles. So there's number 2. Number 3 is pressing itself. We're going to be talking about the press of the trigger. We've done a lot of videos on this on our YouTube channel. I highly recommend you take a 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and watch some of the masterclass, watch some of the trigger press videos. There are playlists on our YouTube channel with each and every one of these where we break these down into a science for you. And this is going to go directly into that as well once it's up and pumping out. If I said to you the press itself is a smooth, linear motion, it needs to go that direction, not that direction, and definitely not that direction. It needs to come straight back to you as you got the gun in a position where it's over your dominant eye and in your line of sight. One of the things I see most people do, and it becomes a challenge for them as they get further out, is dipping their head to get to the gun. Don't dip your head to get to the gun. Bring the gun up into your line of sight so you're looking through the pistol. You're going to be a lot better off than dumping your head. Dumping your head is going to cause low shots continuously. And then once you start doing the low shots, there's not really a solve for that until you start looking through the gun. The weapon should be in your line of sight. The weapon should be over your dominant eye. And those are the 2 places it has to be. If it's not there, we have a problem already. All right. So there are 3 stages of a trigger movement. The number 1 is taking the slack out of the trigger. And this is a light pressure to an engaged trigger resistance. An engaged trigger resistance is a wall. Now, there are some guns that have a hard wall, like a Smith & Wesson Shield Plus, the old Smith & Wessons. They all have those walls that the weapon stops dead. When you take that trigger back, it stops at a hard wall. Anything past that point, the weapon's going to cut. I just told you about us shooting the Glocks a little bit ago. We kid here sighting in his gun for the challenge we do every Thursday night. It is a 9mm league that we do, and he just got a new red dot, and we were trying to sight him in. The challenge with a Glock's trigger is there is no wall. It just comes back, it comes back, it comes back. But the problem was it doesn't come back in the smooth linear motion. It comes back in a stiff, hard motion, and it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier, and then the weapon cuts. The problem with that, it causes so much manipulation when it cuts because there isn't a smooth cutting trigger. It's a real stiff trigger. And then look at the Shield, the equalizer is a good trigger to have. That's a very common, very senior friendly, very woman friendly, very, very light trigger engagement. It comes back, it just gets a little stiffer and bang, it cuts and it keeps it. That's what causes most of the issues is having those big challenging draws when you draw it back because most people can't keep the gun level when it gets stiff. They tend to bring the gun when they're bringing the trigger back. The front post is just leaning forward. And once it leans forward, once the weapon is not level, it's only going to go where it's pointed, guys. It's only going to go where it's pointed. So the very first thing we got to do is take the slack out. And then we're going to find a wall of some kind. That's very hard to call it a wall on some guns. Taurus G2s, Taurus G2Cs, Taurus G3s, G3Cs, they all have long trigger engagements. They're not hard engagements, but they come back to a certain point, and there's somewhat of a wall there. you'll kind of understand when you try your trigger at home what kind of wall manipulation you have. And that wall basically is a point of resistance right before the shot cuts. And this is a very common thing. And if I can get you to educate yourself to know how much slack do I need to put in this trigger or take out of this trigger to get me to the final part of the wall, so I can really concentrate on my sight system to make sure it stays level and make sure sight picture and sight alignment are exactly where they are, and then remove the rest of the resistance of the trigger for then the weapon to cut. And once it's cut, the gun should not manipulate too much so you can do the shot again. All right. And then when the weapon cuts, there's a break. And it breaks, a bang, it cuts. And we don't want that to be a hard snapping point. We want to just stay level. So a smooth add pressure until the shot breaks. No sudden pops or jerks. Roll. It's an easier way for you to get the full trigger travel system. So technically, we break it down into these methods like that, but you can kind of feel how it feels when it goes through. You get the take up, you got the wall, you got the break, and then you got the reset. Now, I don't know if you know much about resets, but in this scenario, reset is the first trigger we engage. I want you to think about a revolver. I want you to think about a double action revolver. Most of you have seen them on TVs. So you have a revolver in your hand. Now, we could take the revolver's trigger and pull through the trigger all the way to the back. And what will happen is once we get that to a certain point, the hammer will be coming back. And once we get that trigger all the way back, the hammer will come forward and fire the weapon, right? Well, that's a double action trigger. And then we can reach up and cock that firearm. And that takes all of your trigger travel out of that pistol all the way to the back side. And that would be the lightest trigger engagement you would have on a revolver. So ideally, if you're at the range, cocking it each time would be the lightest trigger engagement you could have with a revolver. The problem is we don't want to cock that firearm and leave it on our dresser. We want to have that little bit of travel or that double action trigger, because that then will give you the safety. That is a safety thing. When you have a very light trigger engagement, it's pretty scary because it cuts very quickly. I know there's comments being made, guys. After we get done with this, I will come back and I will answer all those comments. And you can put as many as you like in there. So trigger reset on a semi-automatic pistol, and I'll walk you through it real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to bring that trigger back until the weapon cuts. Now, when the weapon fires, we're going to hold that trigger to the back wall. We're going to line up our sight system. We're going to begin to let that trigger come forward. Once it gets to a certain point, you're going to hear an audible click, click. And that's as far as the trigger needs to go for the weapon to reset and allow you to engage the trigger again. So you don't have to go through all that trigger travel. Now, I'll be honest with you. Trigger reset is for bullseyes, not for defensive shooting, if that makes sense. But sometimes we need to spend a little bit of time being a defensive shooter, and we need to spend a large amount of time being a defensive shooter. And if you really don't know the difference in it, we did a live last week about this. We need to spend 80% of our time working on defensive shooting and then 20% on bullseyes. Because technically, in a high defense situation, your body is going to deem sights unnecessary, and you're going to be working off fundamentals of working through the weapon. So trigger reset. Can you guys can comment and let me know if you ever shot the reset on a pistol before? I would like to know what gun it was if you have, and if you've done the reset, you'd kind of understand it. So during the reset, you need to listen and feel for the click and begin to prepare for the next shot. This promotes a faster follow-up shot with control, because you're not going to really run into any kind of having to take it through that whole travel thing like you would on a regular pistol. Like the semi-automatics, like a double action semi-automatic, right? Take a Beretta 92 FS, right? Let's double single action pistol, and it has a decocker on it, right? So technically, the first trigger pull is going to be a heavy trigger pull. It's a safe gun. You pull it back, the hammer comes forward, you fire, it ejects around. When it racks itself, now it's on a single action trigger, which is a super light trigger, which makes you more accurate. That's why those double action semi-automatics are really DA. It's called DASA, double action, single action, because you can do either both of them. The single action is going to be a lot easier and more accurate with it. But there's a lot of complications of that as well, because you have some have decockers, some don't have decockers. So if you took a single action pistol, like a 1911, for instance, and now you want to take the hammer not cocked and make it back into the gun, right? Well, you have to pull the trigger while holding the hammer back, and then let the hammer come forward to take the tension off. Where a decocker, like on a FS92 or a CZ75, there's a little thing called a decocker, and all there's a lever there. When you kick that lever down, it moves the hammer forward. It seems like it comes forward very fast, but there's a safety bar that comes up that will not allow that weapon to fire. So there's a couple, the DASA weapons like that have their advantages. They're kind of old school now, where you look at Glocks and Smiths and Rugers and 365s they're all like what they consider striker fire units. So there is no technically a hammer models in those. Okay. But they one trigger pull, one bullet, basically. All right. So now we're going to talk about the science of disturbance, and this is what causes inaccuracy. These things like that. You introduce lateral or a vertical force. Now, what causes you to miss is a lot of different things, but this is commonly what we see happening in the range. We're putting some kind of manipulation on the firearm that's causing a force to go against the right of it, the left of it, the front of it, or the back of it. And each one of those are going to cause more manipulation than anything else. What happens is we are shifting our muzzle alignment during ignition. That means when the bullet takes off. So if we take a weapon and we are driving really hard with our right hand, and we cut that shot right before we do it, that's why those bullets roll off to the right. Because in your home this evening, and let me just prove it to you, by taking your firearm, make sure it's unloaded, nothing in the chamber, no bullets, nothing like that. And just squeeze hard with your right hand. You're going to watch that firearm roll off to the right. It's just natural because we're only putting contact on one side of the pistol. And if we did the same thing with your left hand, you're only putting contact on the pistol on the left side, so it's going to roll off to the left. So when we put both hands together and tie them together, that's when the gun stays stable in the middle. Unless you do some jerking of the trigger, putting your thumbs on the weapon, burying a thumb, and not touching the firearm. Remember, if you can remember one thing for me, and this is important for you to get this, a firearm is a bully. And if you give it something, it's going to take it. We cannot give the firearm anything. We control it. It doesn't control me. Had a wonderful lady today. She bought a pistol a year and a half ago. She had not even opened the box. She came today and she did wonderful with my pistol. She bought a red dot 22. Someone told her it was a great gun, and she couldn't find the red dot. She couldn't find anything about it, right? But one of the things we've been talking about her is she come from Maryland, and they're not very gun friendly there. So in her mind, she's born and raised there, a firearm is a deadly weapon. And she kept talking about where's the safety and how do I know the gun's safe and how do I do this? And I stopped her for a second. And I want you guys to get yourself in this whole same position because some of you may feel this, right? You're on here to learn a little bit, but I want to give you what a firearm really is. And I want to give you a definition of a handgun. The definition of a handgun is a tool. It's a tool that holds a projectile that will engage that projectile, and the gases will send that bullet out in front. But technically, people look at a firearm as a deadly weapon because they assume it's going to do something, and firearms don't do anything. They can't load themselves. They can't rack themselves. They can't put their own trigger. They can't put their own magazine in. They can't load their own magazine. They can't engage the trigger. So if you really think about it, a firearm is just a tool, and a tool needs a craftsman. And that's what you guys need to become, craftsmen of the firearm. Because technically, after I got done talking to her, she went from being a nervous little Nelly to walking out of here with some pride and confidence, which was an awesome thing. And she's 68 years old. I don't remember exactly. She's 66 or 67 or 68. I know she's retiring. I know she retired a couple of years ago. I think she's 67, but she did wonderful today. Great strength, power. She had a little bit of grip issue, but by the time I got done with her, she was rock solid. And her son sent him over here, so that was awesome. Appreciate that. All right. Shifting the alignment during ignition is one of the most challenging things that happen, and you physically can't see it. I watch a lot of students. I carry my cell phone when I'm doing classes in the back, because when I try to tell a student, now that right there, you actually pulled the trigger. Now, when they actually pull the trigger, you can actually see the gun dip. And when the gun dips, that's dipping the bullet, that's dipping the gun, that's changing your line of sight, line of trajectory, and it's going to make you miss. And then when they cut a shot that's smooth and right on top of it, then they can feel the difference, if that makes sense. And you even can feel the difference. And the more flinching we do, the more manipulation we're doing, and the more challenging it is to be accurate with a pistol. Even a 0.003 second flinch before ignition moves your point of impact at 7 yards and you're gonna definitely see it. And you think about shooting at longer distances, because remember, that bullet is not flying out of the barrel at a straight line, it's moving up into the line of sight, so it becomes a little challenging. So what people do is they don't understand where to aim the pistol, and so they're using the barrel as the center of the target versus the sights are the center of the target. So number 6 is training for the perfect press. Now, I talked about the wall drill already. I talked about the ball and dummy drill. The slow fire drill is a good drill because this is a white paper drill. And this is a good drill for you guys to try in the range, because this tells you an awful lot if you are doing some manipulation. Just go ahead and take one of the targets that you buy, flip it to the back side of it. Make sure it's white, all white. I don't want you to have a point of impact. I don't want you to have a target out there, basically. But I want you to aim at a white spot on that white piece of paper. And I want you to slowly begin to take the slack out of that trigger, get to that wall, and then start applying pressure until the weapon cuts. Now, if it impacts where you're aiming, then you're doing everything good. If it impacts below where you're aiming, you've done some manipulation of the firearm. And this is one of those things that people don't even realize they're doing until it happens. Another drill you can do, guys, is the black line drill. And that is taking a black piece of tape, like electric tape, and put it on the white piece of paper and put that directly, you want it horizontally, right? And you want it directly in your line of sight right here. And then I want you to put that up at the target. Put it at 3 yards if you want to. Doesn't really matter. Put that 3 yards out there. And then from there, take your weapon, aim at that line, do your 6 o'clock hold on it. In other words, you won't be putting your barrel on that line. You'll put your sights on that line. Your barrel would be a little bit below that black line as your sights are laid out there. And then as you slowly cut that trigger, if you cut that line with a bullet or just barely miss it below, you're okay. But if you miss high, you're doing it right. If you hit the line or get just a little high, you're doing it right. But if you miss below that line, you manipulated the firearm. Because 90% of people who are pointing a weapon at a target, always impact below where they're aiming. And be honest with yourself when you do that, because at the end of it, it makes it so much easier for you to understand I am doing some manipulation. The greatest thing you could do is invest. Now, you got to check your range and let's see if they'll let you do this. Here, we let you do it all the time. Get you a tripod, get your cell phone, put it behind you, and videotape your hands. Not your target, just your hands, and you'll see what manipulations you're doing. And once you guys identify what you're doing wrong, it's the easiest thing in the world to solve. That's the beauty of the masterclass. Every student that's ever got into the masterclass, they didn't know how to solve their problems, and they didn't even know they had problems. And then once we got the problem solved, it made it so much easier for them to understand what they're doing wrong. And the more we understand what we're doing wrong with the firearm, the easier it is for us to educate ourselves to understand what it is and how to solve it. All right. Mastering the trigger press is about control and consistency. The science is proven that minimal disruptions of the trigger affects everything downrange. A smooth, deliberate pressure applied in a linear fashion keeps your sights ready and on target. Now, I will tell you guys, you've solved the trigger issue. You've got a positive thing that happens. Now, I told you earlier today there's ebooks available for you, and the ebook, Press That Trigger, is a phenomenal book. It gives you a lot of definitions, it gives you a lot of effect, it tells you exactly what you're doing wrong. You want that book, you put it in the cart and put free book at checkout, and it's yours for free. No strings attached. All right, let's go ahead and check our comments out. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Charles, how you doing? Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. And Charles, where are you from, buddy? Charles Meredith, where are you from? All right. By the way, guys, if you want any of these targets, you can actually physically let us know in the comments or go to our YouTube channel. There are videos. We have targets that we do all the time. Most of the videos you see on our that have a target in, there is a video that there is a target PDF you can download. Bob Bomber, thank you very much for being here, buddy. Well, thank you again. You're awesome. All right. Bob says, now my SR22 has a single and double action. It's weird. Not my carry gun. It's a camper gun. Yeah, I mean, they are weird. That Ruger. Weird thing about that Ruger, there's no decocker on it, and the safety's backwards on it. It's down versus up. I'm not crazy about those. They're hard to clean too, but it is a neat little thing. All right. And then Bob talked about his Smith & Wesson Shield 2.0 9mm with a Crimson Trace laser. Yeah, there we go. That's a good weapon. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I understand. Talking about amazing. You were talking about a revolver trigger. I find that after shooting my revolver at the range, first I do much better. Yeah, because it's definitely causing you to have issues with the firearm. You know, anytime you can press a trigger and try to get that travel. You know, revolvers really, they have this thing called staging of the trigger. A lot of the old timey revolver guys, they can get that revolver back to a certain point where it becomes the lightest trigger engagement you could get. And what it's called is staging, because when you bring that trigger back, that hammer comes back, and just about where it's going to roll over, it just takes all the poundage off of it and makes it so much easier. So you can level out your target, level out your sight system, and finish it each time. It's so much easier. Thank you, Charles, from Jacksonville, Florida. The Jags. Is that your team, the Jags? We had a good night tonight. Looks like we got to about 17, 18 people that came in on live. Sometimes it doesn't show it. Do me a favor, guys, if you can, before you get off here this evening, make sure you check your subscription. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Charles said, hell no, Jacksonville Jags are my king. They might do all right this year. Who knows? Florida team's going to look good all the way around. I'm a Bucs fan. Baker's my boy. I called Tom before Tom came. I called that. I want Jacob as my witness. Mid-year before when Tom was still with the Patriots, talk about retiring. I said, Tommy's going to come to Tampa. He's going to get a Super Bowl. I wish I had some figured out how to make money at that. I'd have made a fortune. I never would have thought that would happen. Oh, Charles is a Bills fan. That's awesome. Yeah, so I don't know where I was on that, but the trigger on a revolver is one of those things. Hope the Jags win. There we go. There we go, Rodney. Yeah, there we go. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys. Oh, subscribing. I want to make sure you guys all subscribe to my channel. We're getting a lot of people who physically get called or say that they get unsubscribed from the channel. We are not unsubscribing anybody, but somehow or another you get unsubscribed to our channel. So I want you to verify that. Go ahead and hit the bell icon, the like and subscribe button. And every time we upload a live or anything else like that, you'll be the next to know. Now, we are always looking for content. If you find something that you want us to do something on, and we think it's going to be good for the whole channel, we would love for you to hear it from you and let us know. We get it put out there. Now, we actually turn this on live here after a little bit, and this gets up to 500, 600, 700 people after the live's happening. But we appreciate each and every one of you who come here each week to listen to me live. We appreciate that very much. It's actually, it's a little bit of, it kind of takes me down, I guess, what I like. I like the whole concept. I started this channel to motivate, educate, and entertain. I remember Johnny and I, when we got this thing going, and I said to Johnny, well, I'm going to do the YouTube. I really, oh, here we go, Rodney. Thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate you saying that. You helped me big time. High left. Yeah, I remember that high left thing. Weird. High left. We figured it out. You figured it out. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it said firearms training by John. Hang on, I'm sorry. Let me get you the thing. I'll let it roll over and you can see it. Right here. There it is. Firearms training by johngjohnson.com. I know it's long, guys. I really know it's long. But it's actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, there is a link right there in the channel itself that gives you all that stuff. And when you get done with this, there'll be a description down below that'll have it as well. We do, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 videos a month. We do a lot of training videos that include targets as well. We're doing a lot of training targets with videos to download. A lot of neat little stuff. Yeah. So we're doing a lot of that stuff. It works out for me. It gives me something each week to have a video on. That's the one thing as a firearms instructor, if I said, how many different videos can I do? It's all about stance, trigger, sight alignment, sight picture, on and on and on. But when Johnny and I started this, we had 34 subscribers. And as of today, at 7:11 in the afternoon, or in the evening, I should say, we are officially at 39,048 subscribers. So we're very, very fortunate. We've been very fortunate that you guys really have been watching our stuff and continues to support us. And we appreciate you very much. I started this a while back for motivate, educate, entertain, and that's what I try to do each week. And I hope I bring that to you. Yeah, yeah. Tom Brady was decent, but at the end of it, he worked his magic as far as he could. We couldn't protect him. That was awesome. And that was the problem. That's why Tom only lasted as long as he did. He got a Super Bowl ring. All I can say, it probably was the both of them, but I think Tom was more effective than Belichick was at the end there. Now, trust me, Belichick had to have the insight to see all the people he put around Tom, and Tom was smart enough to beat Gronk and a couple other guys to get him where he needs to be. But at the end of it, doesn't matter. The Bucks got that W, and it was good, and it was a decent win for us. I've been a Bucks fan since 1996. My story is that my buddy had a Bears tickets, and I was in the paint business at the time, and he called me on a Sunday afternoon. He goes, "Man, I can't go to the game. It's the Bears." I said, "The Chicago Bears?" I said, "Didn't they just win the Super Bowl?" This was in '95. They won the Super Bowl, and the guy said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I said, "Yeah, man, I'll take them." So I got in the car with my wife, my ex-wife now, but my wife, and we went to Tampa, stayed the old Sombrero, and the Bears came to town, being Super Bowl champs. Think they were going to walk all over the Bucks, and the Bucks kicked their ass. The whole game, man. I don't remember the score, but I remember just the whole game. It was just the Bucks intercepted them. They were doing all kinds of stuff. The quarterback, what was his name? Shit for the Bears, Jim McMahon. They sacked Jim McMahon like 4 or 5 times. I mean, it was just one of those games. And you just, oh my God, it was right here. And I'm watching, and I had my binoculars, and I was looking at. I really went to go see the Bears. To be honest with you, the Bucks were nobody. I mean, they were nothing. I mean, I wasn't a Bucks fan, but that whole game made me a Bucks fan at that point in time. It was the coolest thing ever. And then at the end of it, Dick came on and said, "Yeah, we're going to get them in Chicago," because the Bucks never went to Chicago in the wintertime and won because they were not used to the cold. And do you know the Bucks went early that year to Chicago, and the Bucks get them in Chicago too. So it was kind of cool. That's how I became a Bears fan. I've been to my wife's bucket list was to go to Chicago Field, so I got to see a Bears in Chicago Field. That was her big thing she wanted to do. So we went and seen Jacksonville. No, the Vikings and the Bears in December, like the 27th or the 28th in December, right after Christmas, Monday night game. And it was freaking freezing, dude. And everyone there was saying it was a warm night compared to what it normally is. It's crazy, I'm telling you. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of the show here this evening. I want to thank each and every one of you. You guys mean the world to me. I appreciate you very much. You need any services or anything from me, don't hesitate. I'm always here for you. I'm here to help you become the best shooter you can be. If you know any friends or family, you want to share this podcast with them, please do. We do have the online classes now. We have the master class, was all over the United States. That's a nice little class. It gives you the ability to work with me for 4 solid weeks to get your accuracy down to a science. The master classes, the next one's the first Monday of June. I think that's the 5th or something like that. We've lowered the price for the summer, and it gives you 4 solid weeks. It gives you a course light system. It gives you videos. It gives you that correlate with each one. You're interested in anything like that, give us a jingle. We'll actually get you the information you need to get you signed up for that. You got to be available Monday nights at 7 o'clock. You got to be able to get to the range for a 30-minute session. Your local range. Obviously, people who are locally here can come here. We don't charge for range time when you use our range when you work into the master system. But obviously, if you're somewhere else, most of these are low round count drills. It makes it so much easier. Watch the video on the master class. It makes so much difference on how you are going to become a better shooter. Doing the same thing, shooting the same way, and not trying to adjust or fix is the real problem for most people. If they don't adjust, they don't fix, and they don't prepare themselves to become a better shooter, what's going to change? Nothing's going to change. But you need to identify what you're doing wrong and fix it. And that's what the masterclass is about. The masterclass is about identifying what you're doing wrong and fix it. All right, guys, have a great rest of the week. God bless. Be safe. And remember, you are your first line of defense. Thank you very much, and God bless.